im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati.
Pozdrav dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni podcast. Današnja epizoda se bavi jednom temom koja sigurno će biti vrlo aktualna u Hrvatskoj vrlo skoro, već jest, samo mnogi ne znaju, a radi se o poljoprivredi. Naime, po novim programima koji su si zamislili određeni, ja bih rekao čak ideolozi, a ne politički predstavnici, potrebno je smanjiti broj hektara koji će se baviti poljoprivredom u Europi. Prvo sa kim su krenuli je naravno Nizozemska kao drugi najveći svjetski proizvođač poljoprivrednih proizvoda, vjerovali ili ne, drugi su. Krenuli su prema njima i više od 50% njihovih poljoprivrednih površina žele smanjiti. Međutim, neće stati samo na Nizozemskoj, nastavili su sad ovog trenutka i u Irskoj, vrlo skoro će doći u Hrvatskoj. Današnji gost je netko ko upravo tu temu istražuje, iako dolazi iz industrije koja nije baš direktno vezana za poljoprivredu, ali ta industrija je vezana za sve teme, a to su mediji. Od ovog trenutka nadalje razgovarat ćemo na engleskom. Hello James, welcome to Croatia to our show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, can you say a few words about yourself and your work for audience in Croatia?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a filmmaker and investigator from Washington D.C. originally, and kind of grew up around the system. Not ever working for it, but like around the different various organs, and I'm doing a doctorate now in economics on banking reform, central bank digital currencies. I made the film Planet Lockdown when the whole world locked down. I was very upset about that. I started doing interviews with the most credentialed people around the world and speaking out, and made this film Planet Lockdown. It's available actually in Serbian there on the website, but yeah, it's in 17 languages on planetlockdownfilm.com, and now I'm doing 3 more films, one of which is called Nitrogen 2000, and it's about the Dutch farmer story. So these sort of sustainability goals are being pushed throughout the world. And anyway, being from Washington D.C., I grew up. That was like the capital of NGOs and governmental activity in the U.S., which has this big reach throughout the world. So I'm very skeptical of NGOs and the way these political organizations present their goals or agendas. I think they're very questionable, and all these mission statements should be questioned very thoroughly. So now in Holland, they're talking about nationalizing half of the farmers' land in Holland. That's about 35% of the whole territory of Holland. And that just, having spent a lot of time in Holland, and I'm very familiar with the country, that just shocked me. And so I making a short film on it.
Okay, we'll come to this very fast. Just tell us how it came that you decided to make this documentary Planet Lockdown.
I could see that the whole COVID thing was a scam from the beginning. I mean, it was just very questionable. I think the first thing to me was like, I was in Spain at the time, and so I was like, oh no, I don't want to get stuck in Spain. So I drove to France, and then they locked down France a few days later, and it just seemed to me like it was not about a virus. Like, why lock down everybody? It doesn't. If you look at the epidemiological literature, they don't recommend that. I found 2 references to lockdowns in the epidemiological literature, and they both said don't do this because you're going to harm the country more than you help it. So that was very suspicious. Within the first few weeks, I was like, within the first 3 days, I knew this is an economic move. Then I started looking at the literature, and I found they were recommending policies that were never recommended. So that was highly suspicious. And then they keep saying trust science. But then then all the governments, like in unison, were advocating policies that were not in the scientific literature. So the whole thing seemed very political and creepy and strange, and really, I felt it was like a coming out party of a world government. It was like now they finally gave the WHO, the United Nations, teeth, and they were attacking us, taking our rights and telling us stupid stories all the time. So, yeah, basically I was so upset about it. I was so pissed off about it. I was just very upset.
You said that is economical thing, and I know from the book of Real Anthony Fauci that they transfer 3.9 trillion dollars went to the richest people, and for 3.7 trillion from other part, that means from us. That means richer is getting richer and poor is getting poorer just because of lockdown.
I mean, that's what government does. I'm from Washington. That's all they do. They create regulations to hurt the little guy and help the big guy, and they do it through regulations, permits, taxes, barriers to doing business. You can't do business unless you're some big multinational company with all these lawyers to help you get through all these laws. So, yeah, in the lockdown, it just destroyed this small, medium-sized businesses. But then a few big ones can stay open. And so I think it was like a restructuring of the economy.
Why would they do that? What do you think?
I think it's control, like control the money, control the people, make it in fewer hands. They reduced the overall market size, but it then became more concentrated in big players' hands. So one thing that I knew, like having some businesses, was like if you stop the business, you stop the cash flow. The businesses, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their employees, they can't pay their debts if they're borrowing money from banks. So all the companies, if you close for 1 month, I mean, I predicted like 10% of the companies would go away. If you close for 2-3 months, I mean, it could be like a third of the companies will go away. I mean, it's just like if you close down for 6 months, I mean, how could any business take that? It just stretched my imagination. Like, and then they were telling us like, oh, we're locked down for our health. I mean, it's like if you're bankrupt and suicidal, you're not healthy, like, I mean, so the whole thing, just like, it was more than stupidity. It just looked like, it was so coordinated. I have contacts around the world. And so, I'm talking with people in South America and in Eastern Europe and in Europe and Africa. And it was just like the same thing everywhere. Same talking points, same stickers on the floor, same messaging. So how did they get that so coordinated, and yet they can't even research basic science? It was very suspicious. So I saw some little videos online of some very good people speaking out. And so I just got in contact with them. I bought cinema grade equipment. And then I just set out to make that film and really document these people in very high quality cinema recordings.
Great. Well, it's a great documentary, and I'll put the link below for everybody to see in translation and creation. But also, I had an interview with John Titus, and he explained exactly what happened in the middle of 2000, exactly in March of 2020, when they transfer additional $5.5 trillion of the new cash flow in the market. Now we are feeling this through inflation. And also he was explaining what happened before, but just for our audience to know that I cover all these stories with John Titus, to take a look and tell me, they're continuing now. They have additional agenda. Agenda is agriculture. They think that people, exactly producers of agriculture products, especially cows, they're polluting our environment and our planet. What do you know about this?
I think that's total, bullshit. It's not true that they're It's total BS. Yeah, people have been having cows and growing things for thousands of years, and why is it now a problem? They just decide they pay some scientists to make some stupid computer models to say that now cows are bad. That was one thing that really surprised me editing this movie, was like, why is there so much propaganda against cows? But they're like, cows are bad. That's the farts, it's the burps, in Holland they say the nitrogen, like but they also say the runoff. I was like, why are they coming up with all these different reasons to hate on cows? And so I think the reason is that it's about the land. They want the land, and they want to restructure the food system. So that's what my gut says. I think it's about getting the land, controlling the land, and I think that's going to be different. That plan is going to be a little different country to country. Like in Holland, the government is nationalizing. The government is attempting to nationalize a third of Holland. But then they have these NGOs, and the NGOs are really then going to control the land on behalf of the government. So there's a creepy connection between the NGOs, these oligarchs, the NGOs, and the government. In the U.S., they're buying a lot of land privately, but also a lot of our Western lands here are already owned by the government since forever, or since 150 years, so 200 years. So it's I think it's about food industry and land. That's what I think the focus on cows and agriculture now is.
Okay, do you know who's funding these NGOs?
Yeah, in the Dutch case, there's 6 NGOs, and they're funded by the government, actually. So these oligarchs don't even have to pay for the budget of the NGOs, and then the NGOs recommend the policy, and then the politicians follow the policy. And then after they nationalize the land, in Holland, they're talking about forced purchasing 50% of the cow farmers. So cow farmers own 70% of the country, and they're talking about forced purchasing half of them. So it's 35% of the country. And when they announce this, the land value goes down a little bit, because they're not allowed to do anything with it. And then they're paying them 120% of the value of the land from a 25 billion euro fund. So I looked up who's behind the NGOs a little bit. There was 6 NGOs, and I looked at the former employment of the directors, and 2 of them were Chevron executives. Sounds kind of like Rockefeller Oil. And then there was 3 like big tech guys, like from big tech, like Google Europe, Google Holland, and they were so that's kind of like owned ultimately by BlackRock. And then there was another Dutch banking family executive who used to work for their foundation. So it looked like international banking families, basically, kind of controlling the NGOs and the narratives. And I've been following this for many years, like these oligarchs using this fake environmental movement, telling us that carbon is pollution, telling us nitrogen is pollution. I mean, these are the most common elements of nature. Like, we're all made of carbon, So it's like the Catholic Church used to say, like, you're born in sin, so give us some money. Now they're like, oh, you're carbon, you're pollution, give us some money.
It's interesting. We are carbon, and they are saying that carbon is polluting planet.
Yeah, so we're pollution now.
Yeah, now we are pollution. We are okay, but let's go to the next point. Tell me, what do you think by forcing purchase?
What is it?
What do you think?
What do I think about it?
What do you think by forcing purchase? That means they have to sell it.
They make them sell it, so they don't have a choice. They're going to be forced to sell their land, and this is like sometimes farmers from 10, 15 generations of Dutch farmers. So the significance of this is they're the most efficient farmers in Europe and in the world, really. Holland, Dutch farmers. They're the second largest agricultural exporter in the world. This little country, and they have a lot of farming knowledge. The Dutch. So. Another suspicious thing is a month ago, the EU blessed the first purchasing of 3,000 farms, because there's 27,000 farms. They want to purchase 13,000. Now they're moving on purchasing the first 3,000 of the 13,000. So the EU just like a month ago blessed the first purchase, the first 3,000 they want to buy out, and said when these Dutch farmers take the payment for their farms, they're not allowed to move to another EU country and farm again. So the EU is prohibiting these farmers from being farmers again elsewhere in the EU. Like I don't know how they could even say something like that. That's so criminal. Like, and then telling, I mean, it just shows like that they're trying to destroy the knowledge of these Dutch farmers. They're really trying to put them out of business, put them out of commission. So why would they do something like that? I think we should ask that question.
Well, and what they are planning to do with this land when they purchase?
Like, this is another funny thing, is that the NGOs then become the custodians of the land, the caretakers of the land, the NGOs. And in many cases, they put cows back on the land. Like, not as much for food production, but for like land maintenance, like just to eat the grass. And so then there's not a nitrogen problem with those cows. But there's a nitrogen problem when it's a private farmer. So it just doesn't make sense. Nothing they say makes any sense.
And I think that Dutch farmers now established a party, and they won on the last elections.
Yeah, there's a BBB party that they won the last election, like a big number of seats. It remains to be seen if that makes a difference, or if they're a controlled party. There's a lot of people saying it's a controlled party that several Monsanto executives created the party. They're sort of not disagreeing that nitrogen is a problem. They're just saying we shouldn't get rid of our farmers. So they do kind of agree with the general point. And the parties that are very hardline, saying it's total nonsense, total BS, they lost seats in that election. So it's not a clear victory. It's, EU's still moving ahead. I mean, I don't know. It remains to be seen. We'll see how this goes. It's not clear.
And what you are now investigating, you're making this Nitrogen 2000 documentary movie. What you find out, what is maybe exclusive for our audience?
I found out that basically there's a sort of push to get rid of people off their lands. I think there's been talk about just like more getting rid of the farmers. I think investing in other creepier food systems like insects and things, and then push people into the cities. And one of the farmers told me, he's like, look, if they screw us here, like our community will go away here in the countryside, like we can't, if there's fewer farmers, there's no schools, then we can't have kids here. They can't have other friends at school. Like, it's going to destroy our communities, and then we'll have to move to the cities. And then you move to the cities and you get on welfare, you get on some government payment or some, and so there's this trend, I think, to clear the countryside, make it really impossible for the farmers to do any business, force buy their land, and then move them to the cities, and then they can control the people in the cities in some kind of technological prison, in the city, So now they're starting to do this in Canada. They're saying, okay, well, so in Holland, they're saying that the cow, the manure is the problem, right? The pee and the poop of the cow, right? It's high in nitrogen. It makes the plants grow. It's good. So they're saying they don't, in Ireland, they're just saying now that they want to kill 20% of the cows, and the minister of the environmental minister said he doesn't rule out the possibility they'll have to buy the land after they get rid of the cows. So they're arguing in carbon. The carbon is the problem, and they're also like dancing around the nitrogen issue. They can use the nitrogen argument if the carbon argument doesn't work. So in Canada now they're saying they're focusing on limiting nitrogen use, artificial nitrogen use on plants in agriculture. So they're saying they want to limit the amount of fertilizer used. So my film is really kind of attacking the nitrogen argument, because I think there hasn't been a lot of propaganda on nitrogen. There's been a lot of propaganda on carbon, but there hasn't been a lot of propaganda against nitrogen publicly. So I think it's a soft spot. I think a lot of people who are brainwashed on global warming are going to be more open to understanding that it's not true to say that nitrogen is pollution. I mean, it's 78% of the air we breathe. It's the most important fertilizer for plants. It's nitrogen, potassium, phosphate, or what you put in your garden or your field to grow things. So, I mean, like, it's cow manure. Cow manure is high in nitrogen. That's what makes plants green and grow fast. So it's just so ridiculous to say that nitrogen is pollution. I mean, maybe you could argue if some cows, if some nitrogen gets in the river too much, then it makes problems with the biology of water. But you can just limit that. You just protect against that when you need to. There's no reason to go nationalizing farms. So it looks like there's a big private asset, BlackRock kind of buy-in into agriculture, and they're using the government to take whole sections of the industry away, to restructure the whole agricultural global landscape. And it's a very ambitious plan. We'll see if it works. I think people need to wake up to it,
And how was the reaction in Ireland when they said they will get rid of 20% of the cows?
I'm actually going to Ireland in 2 weeks, 10 days or so, to show the film at a conference there and shoot some film on the Irish issue. But they're like, from what I understand now, they do have old interests, like old farmers that, like Holland, they have old dairy farmers and people that have an interest in this, and they don't want to see them go away. So they're fighting it. I think, I'm going to go in 10 days and really see for myself on the ground. But from what I understand, it's not going to be a total easy ride trying to get rid of these guys.
I saw yesterday one video where in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu was visiting one factory. And they show him, they made the meat with the computer. You just put in the computer what kind of meat you want, and they are made it in 3D printer. And it's very tasty, and they're promoting. Is there maybe our future in Europe, the same thing?
Yeah, that's what's creepy. So at the same time they're attacking all these farmers, they're financing insect meat, fake meat, artificial meat. I mean, like, nobody wants to eat this stuff. Like, from what I know, there's nobody buying the fake meat in the grocery store. Bill Gates, I think, funded Impossible Burger, or like, they just, I even saw it at a local barbecue restaurant here. It's like next to the meat, they have like fake meat. And from what I understand, the people aren't buying it. It's not, they don't want to eat fake meat, laboratory meat, 3D printed meat. So I think what we can do is, not buy this stuff. That would do a lot of good to stop them,
Yes, but if you don't have any options, if there is only this kind of meat in the store, then you have to buy it or not to eat meat.
Or I don't think it'll be unavailable. I just think they'll make it super expensive. So that's what it's looking like, is that they're going to raise the price of normal food and then try to feed us this crappy food, like make people really poor and they can only afford the fake food. And then just the rich can eat the real meat, the real food. So that I don't think it's ever going to be like outlawed, but it'll be such a cost difference, That's what I think they're going for.
Then profit again. Okay, and also I heard that these people who are behind all these measures 3 years ago, or last 3 years, sorry, like Bill Gates, he's also buying lots of land in the United States. He is now the biggest landowner in the United States.
Yeah.
He's a specialist in lots kind of businesses. He was a specialist in softwares. then pharmacy, now it's in agriculture. Great guy.
Mm-hmm. Great, wonderful guy. Yeah.
Well, okay.
He loves killing people.
Now it's something very important. Croatia had a 10 years moratorium for selling land. You could buy only as a Croatian citizen, or if you have had a company in Croatia. In that case, you could be from all around Europe. But now, ordinary citizen for all around Europe can buy a land in Croatia, including agricultural land. Is there any dangers, according to these policies, what we see now in the Netherlands and Ireland? I think in France is happening the same thing. Is there any danger that will happen in Croatia? Croatia is a small country. I think Bill Gates or somebody similar to him can buy whole Croatian agricultural land just in one moment. He don't need to buy it step by step. He can buy it everything in one moment. And maybe he can buy it and with the intention not to produce anything. What do you think about this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that we see our lands bought up by these big oligarchs or the state controlled by these oligarchs. So I think we need to be aware of that and protect against it. I mean, we don't want to see the whole world just be owned by a few people, and then they sabotage our livelihood. I mean, that's really what we're facing, I think.
But okay, they are taking care of our future. They're taking care of our planet, and they're taking care of our health. You know, last 3 years they were really pushed hard to protect us from the deadly virus. And now they want to protect us to bring our whole planet in a disaster, climate change. Maybe they have really good intention. I'm not joking, I'm just asking, because there's a people, I listen all the time, people in the politics that are talking about this. I'm now looking for the answer. Why they are believing that this kind of things?
I mean, from the beginning of COVID, I told my friends, don't be so gullible. Don't believe everything they're telling you. I mean, it's really ridiculous to think that these big guys that have a very bad track record, you know, like the company Pfizer had a horrible reputation for bribery and corruption. They have been charged billions of dollars in fines for that. And then we're supposed to believe that they want to help us or like save us. And I mean, United Nations, like look at all the things they say. They always say we're helping the Africans, helping the whales, helping the environment and the climate change and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like, you really have to be an idiot to believe all this stuff. I'm very skeptical about it. I don't think it makes nothing. When someone tells you a story that doesn't make sense, or they're not really saying anything, oh, we're here to help the air, help the whales, like, and then you don't see them doing anything, or all these problems they say they're trying to solve are always getting worse and worse and worse. And then, so the number one thing I like to point out for people is that they're using the United Nations and these big oligarchs behind it are using the environment as a fear tactic to scare people and think the sky is falling, that we all have to give up our prosperity to, quote, save the environment. And first of all, they're not saving anything. They're confusing the issue. They're telling everyone there's climate change or global warming, which is highly questionable. There's not a lot of the basic fundamental scientific argument that carbon causes warming is highly exaggerated and to the point of being ridiculous. And they're confusing global warming, climate change in the public mind with all of environmental issues. So there's 1,000 real environmental issues. There's issues of plastic in the ocean and all kinds of different pollutions and things. And we should fix all these things, but they each need to be fixed specifically with targeted strategies to deal with it. And that has nothing to do with this climate change thing they're talking about. So they're confusing them in the public mind and saying, oh, well, if you care about the environment, you have to believe in climate change and then give up your prosperity and basically, you know, be poor and useless. So I don't think I think people need to understand the difference between reality and fiction, and that basically we're being lied to in a big way, and that we can't substitute our own thinking, our own brain, our own common sense, and it's a crazy time we live in, and we need to have some street smarts, be clever, don't be stupid. If you're going to be stupid, you're going to believe what you're told every day. You're going to get hurt. And you got to look out for yourself and be strong and have thick skin, you know?
Well, I have to mention here that I cover also this topic, what they made as a tactic to press us to be compliant in pandemic. And my guest was Jason Christo from Canada. He was explaining exactly, he was specialist in this. He was explaining that they're doing this with fear. They push lots of fear, and then people in the fear cannot think brightly. That lowers IQ, and we are thinking only with limbic system, what is fight and flight, and we don't think deeply, and that's why they're pushing us to be more compliant, even if anything is not logic. And I recommend everybody to take a look at this show from the few weeks that is on my channel. And I think this time is same tactics. They are pushing fear, fear for our future, for our planet, and they will offer solution, and solution will be close the farmers or something similar. What do you think about this?
Yeah, they're saying fear the virus, fear the sky, fear the air. That it's fear, and fear shuts down your ability to think, and then you believe things more. So, yeah, if you're ever getting a message that is trying to inspire fear, like, be suspicious, like, question what they're saying to you, because number one, it's probably not true, and then they're also doing something else while you're afraid. So there's always some main policy objective that the fear is the marketing campaign for.
Well, and fear is coming, of course, from the mainstream media, and as you mentioned, these companies who are behind all of this also owns mainstream media, and they are pushing propaganda to this media. That's why this alternative media, like ours, are openly talking about these things, because nobody is financing us. We are not doing this from profit. We are living from something else, and we use this platform just to open a question that you cannot find in the mainstream media. There's also a thing that you mentioned. You mentioned control. They want to control people. They want to bring more people to the cities, and they want to control it. What do you mean? How they are planning to control it?
I mean, I think there's just more and more digital. Everything's digital. Everything's kind of on some digital record. So just like we saw in the COVID time, they were able to turn off people's, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, YouTube channels for saying things they don't like. The concern is that they'll have digital money. They'll move people to the cities. They'll change the economic environment where people won't be able to afford certain things, and so they'll have to move to the city. They'll have to get different kinds of work, and just there'll be a general digital surveillance of everything. That World Economic Forum advisor Hariri is always talking about this and putting it in pretty clear terms. I mean, that basically COVID was the time that everyone got really comfortable, was the turning point in surveillance. And, this makes me look at this digital money issue differently. Like, I think at first I was believing the idea of Bitcoin might be a good thing. And then now I'm kind of suspicious that could have been a pilot project for these new CBDC systems, having money that's totally able to be monitored all the transactions. So it just raises some concern where all this is going. I think COVID really, like, the oligarchs sort of showed their intention very clearly. It was very obvious that our best interests were not theirs. They're not looking out for us. They're not trying to help us. They're not trying to save us from anything. They're prototyping and building new sort of economic systems and systems of control that really will make life a lot less enjoyable, to say the least,
Yeah, and for example, for these Dutch farmers who will come to the city and cannot find a new job, they will give them universal basic income, and then will be safe, and this universal basic income will be, of course, in digital currency.
Yeah, digital currency. I mean, this is a focus of my research now. It's like I'm very suspicious that the central bankers piloted the Bitcoin project through the Western intelligence agencies. Because like the main encryption algorithm of Bitcoin is SHA-256, which is used by the U.S. embassies for diplomatic cables, and it's an algorithm, encryption algorithm released by NSA. So it raises the question whether the Western intelligence services created Bitcoin, perhaps on behalf of the central bankers to pilot it, and then there was this huge, crypto ecosystem emerged, and all these companies are making shit coins and these altcoins, and they're just like, so created a vibrant sort of ecosystem to develop the technology further. And then so they marketed it as cool, as like anti-system, and then like tested and prototyped all these new programs they'll need to deploy the central bank digital currencies. So looking back on this and after COVID and all this stuff, I'm kind of like getting more suspicious that this Bitcoin crypto thing, although there can be good applications, I guess you can have privacy coins and privacy with crypto money, like Monero and things like that. It's the use and application of the technologies really has a lot of dark controlling potential, and I think a lot of all my Bitcoin friends are sort of blind to that. They get very emotional about it. I think pumping the value so much and then having people make a lot of money, it gets them. It gets them to like it. People make money on it, and then they feel good about it. And then I'm worried they're going to put in the CBDCs, and then people are going to be more comfortable with that after they just made some money on Bitcoin. So while I think Bitcoin is not a bad investment from that point of view, it's kind of a part of the problem in a sense, because it could be a marketing campaign,
Yeah. That means you think that was a Trojan horse for preparing for digital currency, exactly central bank digital currency. And also this guy who was behind this FTX scandal, where they lost around 8 billion, now he's not anymore in the jail. He's free, and he was a big supporter of the Democratic Party in United States, but he now went out of jail without any consequences, and they lost 8 billion. And it was also part of the happenings in meantime, because my thoughts are that maybe they are doing this kind of scandals just to make more regulation in this market. They have some examples what is bad in this market, and now they have to regulate it more and make more control.
Yeah. I don't know if that was planned, but generally more regulations are coming in crypto space, and you're going to see the same kind of regulations we see with banks come into the crypto area. But it's like I was an early advocate of Bitcoin. I went to the 2013 Senate hearing in Washington on crypto. I went to a FINRA, like a New York financial regulator meeting or public presentation by the regulators, and they were not against Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin did not face any real resistance from the government as a project. It was like kind of surprising. Like if you look at Liberty Reserve and eGold and these other projects, like they really attacked them and shut them down, charged with heavy fines the creator. Now Bitcoin didn't have a public creator like those did, but Why wasn't there like stiff resistance? If Bitcoin was this whole big anti-system thing and that it was really so threatening to the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, and these big international banking families that run our currency systems, like why didn't they sick the government on that? Like they could have regulated the hell out of that thing, and instead they didn't. I remember Chuck Schumer in 2013 in the Senate saying, "Oh, we don't want to get in the way of financial innovation." Da da da. That guy's a complete whore. He'll say whatever he'll say whatever they tell him to say. So he got up there and he said, "We don't want to restrict Bitcoin. We want to let it go, let it free, promote innovation." I mean, that should say something, that this was not some big anti-system project. The system did support it, and they still do. And it just makes me, anyway, a lot of the Bitcoin holdings are very concentrated. The exchanges really manipulate the prices a lot. I mean, the amount of fraud and corruption going on with the exchanges is just fantastic. Way worse than anything we see in the normal banking system and stock market. So I'm not sure it's just like, beacon of hope, that all the crypto people make it out to be. I think there's a lot of serious privacy concerns, serious civil liberties concerns. Like, do we want a money system where every single penny we spend can be tracked and taxed? I don't think we do. And the CBDC programs that are being proposed look quite alarming. I mean, they're talking about the ability to extract taxes automatically, also make the money that we have programmable, so we can't buy certain things with it. The government could just change its mind. Oh, we don't want James buying this. We don't want Andrej purchasing that this week. You reached your quota this month. I mean, the Bank of England has put out papers saying things like that. So this raises some serious concerns.
Yeah. I read these papers, yeah. And I had also one interview with James Corbett, and we were going in details about this, but we have to discuss more about we know that central bank digital currency in Europe for euro are coming. They're saying maybe that will be postponed. I don't know. Decision will be made at October of this year. We'll see. But already in United States, there is always implementing central bank digital currency, digital dollar.
Well, they're doing this Fed Now payment rail. It's sort of, from what I understand, it's kind of like a backbone to have a blockchain designed like payment clearance system between the banks. So I think it's more of a behind the curtain update of the infrastructure for transactions. There's not necessarily something wrong with that per se, because the system is so old and so archaic. Like, it's like, I mean, the U.S. banking system is even less advanced than the European one. But I mean, it's just that's sort of like the backbone clearinghouse payments to clear transactions immediately from bank to bank. Now it takes like days. So,
okay, we'll have to talk more about this topic. It's important and it's coming. But I want to use this situation last 10 minutes. I want to use the occasion to ask you. You made also some documentaries. One of them is "Where is my period?"
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us something about this?
Sure. Yeah, and I also in 2020 went to Kenya and investigated a case of the United Nations basically deploying fertility regulating vaccines on the Kenyan population, on women aged 15 to 45 years old. They had a tetanus campaign that they did in 2013, 14, 15. They had injections every 6 months, October and March, and they said they want to vaccinate women of pregnancy, childbearing age only. And they were also guarding the vials with private security and police is very suspicious. So some Kenyan Catholic doctors got some of the vials. They found that roughly half of them had beta HCG, which is a female pregnancy hormone in it, conjugated with the tetanus that basically makes the woman temporarily infertile from the vaccine. So I went and shot that film. I gave it to Children's Health Defense, and Andy Wakefield edited it and released it. It's called Infertility, a Diabolical Agenda. So now last summer, I was in France, and I heard of this group called Where's My Period in France, of women having serious problems, menstrual problems, not just like heavy period, but hemorrhaging, like bleeding every 5 minutes for days on end, weeks on end. And basically that got my attention. I went and interviewed these women. So I'm making a new film called Where's My Period. The first episode will be called Where's My Period. And it's about the fertility effects of the COVID vaccines and possible explanations why these things are happening, and the background history on these technologies. I think population reduction, mitigation, is a huge focus of people like Gates. They've been very involved with funding these vaccines. And it really got my attention, the fact that in the Kenya case, you had Gates Gavi funding it, you had WHO distributing these shots, and you had Serum Institute of India manufacturing them. And these are the same three players we see in the COVID story. We have Gates Gavi, WHO marketing this thing shamelessly, lying to people about their efficacy, like doing horrible things. Then you have the Serum Institute of India, the largest manufacturer of vaccines in the world, and this guy's very close to Gates, the owner, and here they are producing billions of COVID shots for the world. I mean, any common sense investigator should know that's incredibly suspicious. And then also, just like the Kenya case, they don't want anyone looking at the vials. They create all this strange, suspicious legal language to stop people from examining the vials. Like in the United States, I know it's similar in Europe, they say it's the property of the US government, the vial, until it's injected in the patient. It's like, why don't they? So if you do anything, it's a crime. If you examine the vial.
I like that you mentioned, because my last show was with James Lindsay, also beside everybody else, and topic was impurement in vials for COVID-19, plasmid's DNA, what Kevin McKenna found. And I was asking our agency, HALMED, Agency for Medical Products, to give me chance to control, to see if there is a impurity of plasmid DNA in vaccines, and they answer me formally that it's not allowed to do it. According this 114 and Regulation 2001-83, they are not allowed to control vaccines in case it's already controlled by independent laboratories. And also I found out that these laboratories are not independent at all. They are in conflict of interest. And you just mentioning this, yeah. And Dr. Lindsay told me that she's for sure knows. She believes that they done it on purpose, and the main purpose from this is sterilization.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, when someone's acting suspicious people act suspiciously. Why do they want to hide the ingredients of the vials? And one of the other creepy things I found out was like that these things were authorized by the military and not by the health regulators. So, like, we have a military deployed product under legally. Pfizer was like, producing this stuff on contract from the Defense Department as a military countermeasure prototype demonstration, not an FDA regulated or approved vial. They said no inquiry is even allowed on these things. So that's a perfect legal structure to deploy questionable things. I mean, we need to get good analysis of what the hell is in these vials. And it's all the scientists I interviewed said you don't need to vaccinate against a disease like this. So there was always a question, why a global mass vaccination campaign? What is the obsession with treating everyone with the same medical treatment if we're all different individual patients with different biology, and like it doesn't make medical sense to hit everybody with the same thing. So then they're marketing this thing in the most suspicious way. The people involved have a shady background of being caught sterilizing people in Kenya, and they're using the same methods of distribution in this. So they're controlling the ingredients. They don't want analysis, and they basically prevented all the laboratories in the U.S. and Europe from looking at it because they all do analysis for big pharma or the government. So, like, there's something seriously wrong going on with this, and I think people need to wake up. You know, it's just.
Well, me too. Well, I have to say that also I made an interview with Sasha Latipova, who explained everything about these contracts with with the defense, and well, she investigated everything in details. And for the last question, also you made some interview. Why I'm asking? Because everything is connected, and you also made one documentary. What happened at school? What is this documentary about?
Yeah, the period one and the school one are not finished; they're in production. But the what happened at school is another film I'm working on how basically school is used to program people, and parents need to be more awake on what's going on in school. What happened at school? Like you ask your kid when they come home from school, what happened at school? So I think that it's about how the COVID regulations hurt children, and now this transsexual gender bending kind of issue that they're promoting in schools very heavily in the United States now, and a little less so in Europe, but it's sort of coming everywhere. And so they're passing hate speech rules. They're telling us that boys and girls don't exist. I mean, it's very creepy stuff. So I'm really digging into that. I'm working on finishing the fertility one first because it's like one at a time. But what they're doing at schools is just very concerning. Have you seen that in Croatia, the gender issue at schools?
Well, that's why I'm asking, of course. Not only in schools, we see this everywhere, and they are pushing hard and they are very aggressive. And that's why I was asking, because everything is connected, and my purpose of these shows is to show people what is happening, to give them some answers, and to see that everything is connected, because nothing is really coincidence here.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I mean, the basic sense of one's identity is like their sexuality. So if you confuse the feminism thing, kind of hurt the family, although women should be equal. I'm not arguing against that, but the feminism hurt the family. And then now they're saying, well, your own sense of your own sexuality should be questioned and confused. So it's a way of breaking the individual and making them more controllable. So it's very sad to see these young kids get confused about such basic things. And in some cases, even the state attacking the parents for questioning it.
I'm looking forward for this one new documentary, and I hope that we will talk about this later. Well, thank you, James, for this interview. It was really fruitful, and you brought us lots of very interesting information, very important information. And I hope we see you soon in the next show and the next topic.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time. Yeah.
Evo, draga gospodo, čuli ste malo što gospodin James kaže, sve je povezano, dakle to je moja teorija, naravno ne mora biti točno, ali zato istražujem, zato postavljam pitanja, možda sam samo zabrijao, kako se kaže, možda sam samo nekakav teoretičar zavjere, međutim mislim da sve ove teme imaju jedna veza s drugom i ono što sam primijetio, da se prepoznaju obrasci. Obrasci su isti bili kao što su u pandemiji, isti su kao i u ovim promjenama klimatskim, isti su obrasci u nametanju rodne ideologije u školama, isti su obrasci u nametanju digitalnog novca i, zanimljivo, uvijek isti ljudi stoji iza toga. Tako da, ja bih rekao ipak da možda nije sve tako slučajno, ali postavljat ćemo pitanje, istraživat ćemo, nećemo zaključivati, želim biti siguran, želim imati dokaze za to, ne želim nikoga optužiti pogrešno, ali isto tako smatram da je potrebno o tome razgovarati i zato i postoji ova emisija i zato smo otvoreni za ove teme. Možda su oni u pravu, Ali hajmo o tome razgovarati i zaključiti. Pustimo nametanje, silu, forsiranje, mislim da to nikad ništa nije dobro donijelo. Evo, čuli ste danas i nešto važno što se tiče nas. Hrvatska naime od 1.7. znate i sami ima slobodnu prodaju zemlje. Generalno gledajući za privatno poduzetništvo to nije ni loše. Ako ljudi hoće da uzgajaju nešto, a zemlja stoji, niko ne želi se brinuti o njoj, odlično. Neka investitori dođu, neka uzgajaju nešto, neka grade, to je fantastično. Međutim, što ako dođe ovako kao što u Nizozemskoj i netko odredi zakon da se kupi ta zemlja, da se ne proizvodi ništa, kako bi morali kupovati proizvode drugih vrsta, kao što sam spomenuo danas u intervjuu, dakle umjetno meso ili ono što je sad dozvoljeno, bube i ostale životinjice koje sumnjam osobno da su baš zdrave i korisne za čovjeka. Što ako se dogodi da neki milijarder, ili uistinu Hrvatska je mala zemlja, to se, za njih to nije ništa, kupiti kompletnu prerađivačku industriju u Slavoniji i zatvoriti je. Kako bi mi u Hrvatskoj i turisti koji nam dolaze i svi koji živimo ovdje kupovali tu njihovu umjetnu hranu. To sada više nije problem. Nema prepreke za to. Zemlja je slobodna na prodaju. Na nama je da vidimo da li je to naša budućnost, da li tako želimo ili ipak ćemo postavljati pitanje da vidimo ako netko ima takve namjere da zaustavimo na vrijeme. Ja se nadam da ste zadovoljni sa današnjom emisijom, sa temom koju smo otvorili. Hvala vam što nas pratite, hvala vam što nas podržavate. Ako ste zadovoljni sa gostima koje dovodimo i kako ovo radimo, podržite nas, kupite kavu, podržite naš rad. Mi smo ovdje samo volonteri, da se razumijemo, i radimo to iz uvjerenja, ali ipak postoje i troškovi koji se moraju pokriti kako bi ovo sve bilo uspješno i vama zanimljivo i kako bi mogli i dozvati sve ove goste koje čujete. Stoga, hvala vam na dosadašnjoj podrški i nadam se da ćete nas nastaviti pratiti. Hvala još jedanput za sve i vidimo se uskoro u sljedećoj epizodi.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svojevoljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijer, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi oni koji su